So the way they want to structure that is one way they get a population going to 38. So we don't
So we finished our we get back to the main, all of our stuff where
You know what I mean? Oh my God. Oh my
They were
when they went to the bureau? Griswold?
It's great when you lose position between and I just forgot to ask you guys to see how like all right. Perfect. Love that. We should be able to do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started back up again. So this is Ryan Kramer from AHEDD. He's going to be talking to us about Bureau of Autism Services and Autism Waiver information. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the council to thinking of me and inviting us back. I've been here a couple of years, so it's always a good time to get some information out to everybody. So appreciate your attention. So just to give you a little bit of an overview here, real briefly, AHEDD is kind of an arm of the Bureau of Autism Services at the state level. So we're actually funded through the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services, so the Bureau of Autism Services, which is housed in the Office of Developmental Programs with intellectual disability services, autism services. All of those things are kind of under one umbrella and under one office at the state level. Although the Bureau of Autism Services and the Bureau of Community Supports, which is for folks with ID, certainly do collaborate and work an awful lot together, they are still kind of separate bureaus under that office. So AHEDD is sort of an offshoot of the Bureau of Autism Services, and we were formed a number of years ago as a result of the PA Autism Task Force, which was back in 2005. And there's sort of a list of recommendations that came out of that task force, and one of them was to kind of establish these resource and information and other project-related centers across the state, which really became AHEDD. So AHEDD here in the Western region lives out of the University of Pittsburgh and UPMC Western Psych, which is where I'm from. And then there are two other collaborators within the state. One is in the central part of the state, and that's Hershey Medical Center. And then Drexel University is in the east. So we are, again, a kind of an extension of the Bureau of Autism Services, although we don't function in the same way. We are more of the training, outreach, and sort of informational piece to the Bureau of Autism Services. So I want to just, before we get into some of this other stuff, I just want to mention briefly the adult autism waiver, which Mindy talked about mentioned here. There were several other waivers I'm sure you talked about already today that fall within WICSE, and then RISE kind of helps navigate families and individuals through. The adult autism waiver is a little differently administered. It is administered entirely at the state level versus at the county level. And so the process for applying for that waiver is a bit different. There are 2 ways to do that. One is through making a phone call. So there is a 1-800 number that can be accessed by families, by individuals with autism, folks who are supporting individuals with autism as well, can make that call to start that process. There's also a website where you can kind of go on and make that request for application online as well. All of that information is on our website, and you have a brochure here with kind of our contact information. And one of the things that we function often as is sort of a way to introduce folks to the waiver and how to go about applying and that sort of thing. So we don't actually, we're not the intake piece for the waiver, although we can direct folks and families and individuals and professionals to how to go about actually accessing the information to get those resources and get kind of the application started. So very often we are talking with families by phone or through email who are just kind of getting introduced to different systems and trying to figure out their way. And one of the things that we try and do is make sure that we're aware of all the resources like WICSE and RISE, so we know where to send or at least direct families within each county that we're kind of responsible for. So within the Western region, in terms of the region itself, when we think about region for a cert, we're talking about 23 counties here in the western part of the state. So Westmoreland obviously being one of them, but all the other ones that kind of go from, you know, Fayette, Greene, all the way up through to Erie County. So a lot of the waiver information, the process for applying, all of that can be obtained through our website. And again, it's on in our brochure, as well as the PA DHS website as well. So there's a specific page for autism services and the adult autism waiver there. And it has all of sort of the information broken down there as well, including sort of the process of application and enrollment in the waiver. The adult autism waiver services do not begin for someone until they turn age 21, although folks are encouraged to make application well before that. So very often it's discussion around the time of transition planning and discussion around, you know, 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, start kind of making that application. So that's kind of the brief part of some of the things that one of the things that we kind of function as in terms of how we're involved in the adult autism waiver. I do want to talk a little bit about just some of the other things that we do too that can be helpful to families, to professionals. So kind of looking at what we do overall as a cert. So this is again kind of statewide, regionally. So we do provide some support through the autism community in Pennsylvania. So what we try and do, and you'll see this too, what we try and do is make sure that folks are aware of the available resources within their region, their county, their state, so that they know that there are things that exist and how do I get to those things and how can I access those things. So we're not in the business of replacing what's out there. We're in the business of kind of making sure people are aware of what's there. We do provide a good number of training opportunities and trainings, not only through our website, but we do a lot of face-to-face trainings. In some specific situations, we target some specific groups. Right now, we're looking at the justice system, as well as sort of the emergency medical system. We've kind of had targeted projects related to training those folks in autism and how best to communicate and interact with someone with autism when they come in contact, because we know that that's going to happen. We've also looked at, more recently at training behavioral health professionals in autism and kind of understanding what that can look like in terms of someone having both an autism diagnosis as well as a psychiatric diagnosis, and then needing to be served and still needing treatment for the psychiatric diagnosis, and how there needs to be some flexibility in that treatment. So those have been some things that we've really tried to target. We do build a lot of our own kind of resources, so a lot of the things we do try and pull together and try and centralize some of the things some of the good work that everybody's doing across the state, and have it in one place where folks can access. And you'll see here in a bit some of those, we call them resource bundles that we do. And we do also build sort of our own resources as well. And you'll see that coming up here in a minute. We have some examples of just sort of some of the things that we create to supplement things that are out there, but also just kind of if there is a missing or a gap, we try and make sure that we're pulling that together. And a lot of that is done based on calls that we get, information that we're getting from families and from individuals with autism, kind of asking about, well, I need this, or I'm looking for this, or I'm trying to find this, or I'd like information about that. So the more calls we get about that, obviously it will dictate sort of what we do in terms of development of resources. Of course, connecting folks, again, as we talked about, just kind of making sure folks are aware of resources, but also locally, regionally, and statewide, that folks are aware of other programs and other information centers that are available to them. So we do a lot of work with, in the local area, a lot of the family groups, the advocacy groups, the support groups that are in the area, including Autism Connection of PA, they used to be called a board. The Autism Society chapters within the region, we're connected with them, and we do a lot of kind of crossover in terms of making sure folks are aware of events and information that's coming out of those organizations as well, to kind of make sure that gets pushed out as much as possible. So we do a lot of collaboration work with those folks as well. We do a lot of measuring of things too, so looking at data and needs and how they change over time. We've just finished a round of an update of a needs assessment that went out to families and individuals with autism across the state, looking at asking various questions about needs and what's going well, what someone might need more of. So families that you may have contact with may have already filled that out. They certainly probably received it. Again, it went out statewide. We just closed the survey after about 9 months of it being out there. So this is sort of an update to a previous survey that was done several years ago. So we're trying to see, not only compare kind of information from then to now, but also continue to kind of base what we do on the information that we gathered from this needs assessment survey. So that information over the next several months is going to start to be available, and you'll be able to start to see that on our website as well. The current needs assessment information is on there, and you can access that. The other sort of bit of data that oftentimes is pretty interesting to folks is we did an autism census, and county by county information on that autism census is available also on our website. There's a whole section, you'll see that here in a second. But there's a place where you can kind of download a report specific to Westmoreland County or specific to Fayette County or any county within there. And what you're looking at is the data related to how many folks with autism in that county are actually receiving services. So they're receiving services through some state office in some way, or county office in some way. Of course, those numbers are going to be a bit skewed because we know that not everybody with autism is receiving services. So kind of figuring that out is a challenge. But we're going to work on that. We continue to work on identifying folks. And where that's helpful, obviously, is those that make decisions about services and where funding goes, they often access that information because they want to know well, where, how many people are we talking about when we say this is something that services are needed? So that oftentimes we're asked to provide access to some pretty detailed data when it comes to this information for folks like that. So this is some of the other projects and things that we've done. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but the needs assessment is there. We've talked about a little bit about some of the justice training projects. We've done some different things in terms of looking at assessments that are available, especially within the adult autism waivers. So there are obviously a lot of assessments that get done in terms of when someone does come in for services and is enrolled in the waiver. There are assessments of needs and strengths and those sorts of things within the process of someone starting services. And then of course there's measurements as the person goes through services to be sure that the services are actually functional for that person and they're meeting that person's need. So we have a project that's called PCAMS, and it's an acronym, but it's Person-Centered Assessment Management, and it's a series of those kind of measurements of progress for someone. And it really is a tool to see how the services are actually being utilized and how they're actually successful, or is someone showing progress in the needed areas based on these assessments. And if not, then obviously that service needs to change what that service is doing. So a lot of focus has been on that. As I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of training and interaction with various kinds of behavioral health and psychiatric providers. Psych rehab has been something that we've been working a lot on across the state in terms of there are a number of psychiatric rehabilitation programs that are serving adults with autism. And the ones that we've been talking to, some have been doing really well, some have not been doing really well in providing that service. So we've been trying to give information and make sure that we're supporting those particular programs, because they have become sort of those alternate services when folks can't access waiver services or other services. They have become sort of that kind of other service that might be available to someone who has autism and a psychiatric or behavioral health diagnosis. Substance abuse, we've also interacted with a number of substance abuse folks, professionals, substance use professionals, and done a lot of crossover training and support, which is something you may not think is prevalent, but certainly is a pretty significant issue for folks. There are a lot of reasons why folks with autism seek substance use or substance abuse as a method to sort of support themselves, and it can be a very huge challenge in treating those needs. So we've been doing a lot of work with those folks as well. The Resource Center I'll get to here in a second, which is really probably the most useful thing we can talk about today, given our topics. But again, just kind of our role here. Won't spend a lot of time on that, but bringing the resources together, supporting, again, emphasis on not replacing things. There was some concern when we initially kind of launched our Resource Center. It was, well, why are you trying to replace all the good work that these support groups and family groups are doing? They're functional, they're doing well, and that's really not what we want to do. We want to make sure people can access those and know that they're available, get there. We want to work alongside of them and make sure that that's happening for families and for folks. And of course, we've talked a little bit about some of the projects that we kind of worked on. This is the kind of homepage as it stands right now. We are looking at doing some updating to make this even more kind of user-friendly. But as it stands right now, this is sort of the homepage of our website. And this is, it's kind of a part of our Resource Center, our website. So there's a number of different functions. You can search across the entire website using just kind of a custom search up there. You can kind of type in, and what it does is brings you those resources I've been talking about, not only the bundles of resources, but other things depending on what you're searching for. So this is sort of, again, there's kind of a database warehouse of just kind of resources, information related to, hopefully as we go, everything autism related. You will also see here This is where the information on the autism census lives, which is there in under autism in PA. We do have something called the support group map. When you see there is under autism in the community, and the support group map identifies those support groups county by county. So you'll be able to kind of roll over a map here, and you can see that map here. You can kind of roll over the map with your mouse and kind of find those support groups that are in the area, so in that county. You can create an account here and create your own profile. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but making the profile really allows kind of information to get driven to your account. The way I've seen this used in the past was for folks who are service coordinators or supports coordinators, who are therapists, and even teachers. They create their account and they create a profile based on their patient, their student, their client. Again, there's no personal information, just the person's age and kind of the things that you want to drive to that. And based on that profile, information kind of can be sent to that profile, and you can kind of save information there too. So I've seen, again, working in clinics programs, therapists will have kind of profiles set up for the patients that they're seeing, the clients they're seeing, and kind of be able to pull information from the website based on that. So that's where I've seen it kind of be somewhat helpful. We do have a monthly newsletter too that you can subscribe to here. It's free, it comes through your email. Again, it gives some events, it gives some other interesting information that's going on, and again, this kind of covers statewide information too. This is just a process. You can see creating some of the accounts here. There is sort of an information piece here that you kind of input. This creates your profile, and you can see, kind of gives you the you may also like stuff here. You can add profiles under your own account here as well. So again, save your favorite resources, suggestions based on your favorite history and the information that you plug in, and you can create profiles for folks. Again, it can be your family you're supporting, or if you're a family member, it can be your son, your daughter, that sort of thing, or yourself as a parent. You can do that as well. Just mention this in terms of transition. This was something that we added to sort of our sort of resources and kind of pulled out from the overall resources, and this is ASD Next, and it's really devoted entirely to folks who are young adults and adults. So the information, the things you find there really are based in that sort of idea that's catered towards sort of that population of folks. So the information there really is geared towards folks that are kind of in transition in life, moving towards adulthood and in adulthood. So on the website there is calendar events. There are folks who are bloggers that are part of this. There is a lot of encouragement of interaction on ASD Next, so folks with autism are interacting quite a bit through not only the blog, but also through message boards that are available on there. So there's a lot of kind of back and forth discussion, around needs, that kind of thing, and it really is driven by folks with autism mostly. There are obviously resources, and then there's sort of a community gallery of information, but the gallery also kind of has some work that folks with autism have completed as well. So we get a lot of stuff coming in. We have to kind of edit it down sometimes, and maybe sometimes it's not always good to things that we want to post or that we're allowed to post. So sometimes that gets edited, but certainly there's ways to kind of interact with the website and with other folks in that section of the website as well. Talk a little bit about the Resource Center as a whole, though, the ASSERT Resource Center. I mentioned this. You can contact a live person. So we do have, and I think it's on here, maybe not. maybe that's the next slide, but there is what we call a warm line, not a hot line, but a warm line, because it's not a crisis line. That's been a challenge, because, you know, obviously, you all know this, lots of folks are often kind of, well, where do I call in a crisis if I need something? This is not a crisis line. What it is, it's an opportunity for someone to kind of leave a message, hey, this is what I'm calling about, and then a resource specialist can call that person back and talk with them about the question that they have. So this can be a person with autism, this can be a family member of a person with autism, this can be a professional, request for training, those kinds of things can go through that. The number for that resource center is on the brochure, and it's at the end of this presentation as well. We do have, again, the resources are available region and statewide. There's a lot of information on there. We do have the database of information. We do, again, we vet everything that goes up onto the website and in those resources, so it's really based in, you know, evidence-based as much as possible. It's based in things that are approved through the state, things that are approved nationally with science and so forth, but we do have sort of a vetting, an internal vetting criteria in terms of what goes up. We will often get sort of suggestions or calls about, well, I designed this thing, or I have this new therapeutic intervention. Please post that we're available to do this new therapeutic intervention. We're probably not going to do that. Because, again, we have this pretty strict vetting, and, you know, if someone's sending us information and saying, look, I just, you know, found this new thing, and boy, it's going to cure autism. Well, of course, that's going to be a red flag, and we're probably not going to do that, right? That's a pretty severe case, but we continually update, so there's a lot of news. The events page is, again, it's statewide, so we get information from all of the, again, local groups. We try and make sure that that's on there, and again, it can be, you know, you can look at it regionally, but you can also look at it statewide. There are events that are constantly updated, actually daily. Those are updated. And again, with the opportunity for anyone to create a personal account is also there. So why people might contact us, someone to talk to, someone to listen. Again, it's not a counseling line, it's not a, you know, crisis line, but certainly we do a lot of discussion. We have a lot of discussions with families, especially around their son or daughter situation, and we talk about ways that can be approached. We certainly would, you know, make sure that folks that call are connected with the various services. So we've made sure folks know about OVR and case management, as well as you know, RISE and AHEDD and all of the groups. We make sure families get that information. So a lot of times we'll talk with folks, and they'll, you know, these are families that often they have either a young adult that they're in their family, or an adult who just kind of got a diagnosis as an adult, and now they're kind of like, well, I don't know, what do I need to access, where do I start, what do I do? And we try and make sure that they have that sort of little bit of a direction. Again, we're not going to tell them, okay, you need to see this doctor because he's the best in the world. We're not going to do that, but certainly we're going to say, look, here are some options, and here are places you can connect to find. There are lots of groups, especially those support groups locally, who will tell you, here's this doctor, you gotta see him or her because they're the best. So that's where we kind of hand off that information. We're not gonna tell you who's the best and who's not good, that kind of stuff. Obviously not a good practice to get into. Sometimes it's a specific question or a need, so it is, you know, we'll get, well, my son is graduating next year, and we don't really have a plan, so what do you suggest, or what are the resources, or who can I contact to help kind of get that plan together? So we'll help kind of do that too. Sometimes folks, again, don't really know why they're calling, right? They just, well, here's my situation, what do you think? And that's okay too. Again, we're not going to counsel anybody, and we're not going to kind of intervene in a crisis, but certainly we can hopefully, again, just kind of give some launching point, right, for what can happen next, who can I access? So again, just sort of a conduit to that for families and for individuals as well. So other ways to kind of access resources that we have. Again, we have the warm line, the phone that I mentioned. We have a presence on social media. We're getting a bigger presence on social media. So we have Facebook and Twitter right now. Push a lot of information through Facebook and Twitter in terms of things that are available not only statewide and regionally, but also nationally. Again, and a lot of times we'll emphasize here, we've just bundled together a bunch of new resources because we've been getting a lot of calls about this topic in our resource center, so we want to make sure people are aware. So we might get a tweet about, hey, there's this new resource bundle that's available. We also have an email address, which is also on the brochure there. It's also accessible on the website. You can contact us through email. Just kind of, there's a contact, if you've been on websites, you have the contact page where you kind of plug in your name and this is what my question is kind of thing. So again, just kind of the things, and we kind of break down some of the things. So of course, regionally, we do manage calls and communications regionally, but also there are some, essentially some questions that go to specific regions that get answered. And then we do kind of based on location, but then again, we create tickets based on that. So someone's responsible for making sure. It's not like we just sort of write these things down. There is a sort of a process, and then someone has been designated as responsible for that ticket. It's called. I don't call it a ticket. Everybody else seems to call it a ticket. So. The only tickets I'm used to is getting speeding tickets or parking tickets when I'm in my office. The reach, just give you a little information here in terms of, this is kind of a data that's maybe about 4 months old, 4 or 5 months old. Over almost 8,500 tickets in the resource center, about 18,000 users on our website, social media followers over 4,000, about 8,300 newsletter subscribers. So just to give you that kind of information. We'd love to have all those numbers go up. So certainly makes sense to give us a call, at least for those folks maybe don't have a starting point. We can certainly help guide. I mentioned the support group map. It is a clickable map, so you can click on the county that you're looking at. There are some, again, we identify online groups, but we also have the in-person kind of where a family or a person with autism can kind of go to. So those of you who are familiar with a group like AHEDD, who is now Autism Connection of PA, they not only have sort of their own kind of resource center, they can do that, and we share information a lot, so we kind of work together in some situations. But they also have a number of face-to-face support groups, so that's been helpful, where we can kind of help families get connected with the board, and then they're connected even more specifically in the town that they're in to a support group where they can get some of this direct connection with other families, and get some more information specific to, well, this is the doctor that's available, this is the behavior specialist or the agency that we work with, and they do a nice job. Those kinds of specific informations can be shared. This is Philadelphia. You don't have to worry about that, but of course, there is a project within Philadelphia called it's the Philly Autism Project, and it really is an effort by the City Council in Philadelphia to really make Philadelphia what they're calling an autism competent and an autism friendly city. Really driven by the City Council. So that's why you'll see that sometimes some of the Philly stuff is peppered in here, because they've really made, and there's some discussion around, other larger towns and cities connecting with Philadelphia to find out how they're doing that. So we do have, this is just some examples of the resource bundles that we do have. Again, sometimes they're requests from various places that we kind of pull information together. And sometimes, again, a lot of times they're based on information we're getting from people, questions and requests that we're getting from people. So early child resource bundle, developmental milestones, signs of autism, what to do after a diagnosis is all there, kind of in one place. And you can see, you'll see a very individualized sort of URL there for these bundles. On our website, though, there is a section, and it's entitled Resource Bundles, so you can go there and you'll see these listed kind of there. Early intervention resource collection. I do want to just kind of call your attention to this based on the day today. Transition toolkit collection, we do have that kind of, so these aren't necessarily things we've created. These are things that are available out there. We just kind of put them all in one place where people can access it. And you can see it's based on sort of the person's age that we're thinking about. So it goes all the way from someone who's newly diagnosed to folks that are, about 26, older adults. We do have lots of resources for justice as well. This has been a pretty big project. Again, just making sure, given some of the incidents that have occurred recently with interactions with justice system professionals, both to protect folks with autism, but also to protect and help the justice system professionals as well to kind of understand more and protect themselves to make their jobs a bit easier as well. So there's lots of information there. This is just one of those things that's available under there. We do have information on Act 62, which wouldn't necessarily apply to adults. Obviously, this is obviously a child-related resource bundle. We do have resources on physical health. We have one on ABA, or applied behavior analysis. LGBTQI resource page. This was a request we had to kind of pull resources together for folks. This was actually pretty popular, obviously, leading up to yesterday, because lots of folks looking for information on best way to help someone with autism or assist someone with autism or other disabilities to vote, to have their voice heard. So this was a pretty popular one recently, and we did a lot of kind of tweeting to make sure this stuff was out there prior to, just so folks knew about it. We do have some library resources. This is another pretty popular one. This is about medications in autism, so there are a number of different resources related to that. So again, just giving you some examples. This is our information, so the website is there, paautism.org. This is the phone number for our resource center, that warm line where someone can call us. And of course, the email is there as well, info@paautism.org. All of this information is on that brochure as well, and obviously if you go to paautism.org, you can get that there. So that's it. Any questions?
You said you do trainings.
Yeah.
Would you come into a school and do a training for the staff?
Yes.
How long would you need?
It's catered to the needs of the organization or the agency or the group. So we've done day long, we've done a couple hours, we've done 45 minutes, we've done staff meetings that were half hour long, where we kind of, depending on what the topic is. And that's free. We don't charge anything for that. We just go where we're told to go. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, so maybe a couple more minutes as we again switch to our last presenter. Joy Smith will be joining us from AHEDD. So if you guys again need to take a break, stretch, whatever, just be a couple minutes.
I realized that yesterday morning, I'm like, I never sent her that PowerPoint, I promised it like 3 weeks ago. And then the IT got finally figured
So,
it out.
we're gonna.
No, not transition. Like a casino down there in Washington.
Barrier area's gone. No. Yeah, she's definitely shopping.
On the silos.
But all four of us, all five of us need to do all of us. Yes, you very much. It is, she is, we're tracking where she is and what she's doing.
Don't want to get me a BAS. I don't want to.
Guy on the left.
Forward, backward.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we started with Joy from AHEDD for our last presentation.
Alrighty, so here we are, Social Security benefits and working. A very exciting topic for us all. I don't know if it's good to have it the last end of it or you know what, but here we go. This is something that I feel really strongly about. I've been doing this job for a number of years now, and there's just so much still misinformation out there. People hear this, people hear that, so much confusion. And part of my job is to make sure that we kind of get the word out there on what this means. And a priority for us and for Social Security is transition age youth. Getting into the schools, talking to kids, talking to families about this important issue because, you know, we're all doing such great things with transition, but then you go so far, you get them a job, they're working, and then now the question comes up, what's going to happen to my cash benefits, what's going to happen to my medical, if they're on waivers, what's going to happen to all this stuff. So this is just my contact information here. I do have these brochures in the back of the room, so feel free to take some, and if you're from an agency, a school district, what have you, and you'd like me to send you some of these, 50, 100, 200, what have you, to pass out to families, beneficiaries that you're working with, I'd be more than happy to, so that we can get the word out. Unfortunately, through our funding, through our staff, we're not able to go to IEP meetings. But if you know someone, is on Social Security benefits and, they're in an IEP, if you can pack this in with them, send it home with kids, I don't know. My son seems to throw everything in that book bag and then it comes out all crinkled and stuff. So whatever, I don't know what the best way is to get this out to parents, but I'm thinking the IEP might be because you have them physically there and hopefully they don't crinkle it all up and throw it, wherever else. So this is what we're going to talk a little bit about today, about what is SSI, ways to save money while on SSI, and what the WIPA programs can do for you. So the program that I work under is called WIPA, which stands for Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. And the one lady said here about all the acronyms. My program, Social Security, they love the acronyms. So basically what we're here to do is counsel people on Social Security benefits and help them understand what goes on when they go to work. The bottom line. So, and this is something that I do also feel strongly about. You know, I take a lot of phone calls from families, from beneficiaries, and they say, how much can I make before I lose my benefits? That's like the go-to question. And we don't answer that over the phone because, first of all, everyone's situation is different. And sometimes a person will tell you that they're getting SSI, but they're not really getting SSI. They're getting SSDI, or they're getting it off of a parent's benefit, or they might not even be on Social Security benefits. But what we really want to try to change is the limits that people have. Like, it's like, I can only make so much before the end of the world happens. Because I think all of us in this room here, I mean, you don't go to your boss and say, I can only make so much money. You know, no one does that. You know? I mean, it's like, no, stop me right here. I can't make any more. You know, but because we all want something better in life. You know, we want to, whatever your situation is, you want to take another vacation, you want to have an addition put on your house, you want to go out to eat. I like what Jenny said about, you know, SSI is $750 a month. That is not a lot of money. Now, if you're a young adult, a kid, whatever you want to call, and you're living at home, yeah, you see that $750 is just money to blow on video games, going out to eat, what have you. But if you're living on your own, or if your family situation, you know, is pretty tight with money, that $750 does not go very far. So it's kind of like, you know, talking to young adults saying, hey, this is what you could be doing. You know, this is the SSI, this is what's going to happen. Yeah, this is the government rules, but what do you want out of life? You know, what do you want to have better for yourself? You know, when I talk to some kids, it's, you know, something maybe basic, like a video game, or going to the movies, or, you know, buying a car, those types of things. But you're not going to get a lot of things on $750 a month. I mean, it's just, it's below poverty. So now next year it is going up with the cost of living, so it's going up to $771. But the cost of living went up more than $21, you know, in the year. So, but that's, you know, and really point to people, you know, to say that they want to work. You know, it feels good to work. It's, you know, we all have our days where it's like, oh, you know, I got to get up and go to work again. But I mean, it is fulfilling. And I mean, you look at what purpose would you have in life, you know, if you didn't really work. I talked to a guy yesterday, you know, he, about 10 years ago, he was in a really bad car accident. So he had, you know, broken back, he was telling me he severed his arm and all this other stuff was reattached. And he got through all the physical therapy and now he's working again. He's working part-time, but he's like, you know, it feels so much better to work. He's like, you know, in the past 6 months that I've been working, time goes so quickly because I'm busy, I'm doing stuff. When you don't have, you know, a set schedule or you're just looking at going to doctor's appointments or therapy, time kind of drags. And he's like, you know, I'm ready to take this next step and go on from here. Now, it took him, you know, 10 years to get to that point, but, you know, sometimes that's the case. But he's at a point now where he can do a lot more and he wants to. So, barriers to employment. I mean, these are, the first one is really the big one, is fear. You know, a lot of times people get on benefits and it takes them a while to get on benefits. Sometimes it can take a couple years. And then so, you know, you have someone saying, oh, you can go back to work and don't worry about anything, but they're fearful because it took them all this time to get on benefits. You know, what do I do next? It is difficult to qualify. I mean, like what Wixie was saying and things like that, you gotta go through all these processes. So, you know, as a family, they got them hooked up with Wixie, then they get them hooked up with OVR, and then they gotta go through Social Security. I mean, this is a lot of paperwork and kind of a lot of frustrating things that families have to do, and really each place is asking the same type of questions, but none of them are merged together. There's a lot of wrong information. The one myth that I'm not sure who started it, but it still lingers today, is that you can work 20 hours a week and still keep your full benefits. That was never the case. It will never be the case, but I still work with individuals who said, oh yeah, I'm working 20 hours a week, everything's cool, I don't need to worry about anything. And that's not the situation by any means. So, complex rules. I mean, you know, Social Security has, you know, books and books and books on regulations. It probably would fill up this room. The last thing here is overpayments. You know, at some point, sometimes Social Security says, hey, we paid you too much money, now we want our money back. No one wants to deal with that. The person doesn't want to deal with that, Social Security doesn't want to deal with that, but they do happen. What do you think one of the main reasons is that causes an overpayment? Any guesses out there?
Person got a job and didn't report it.
The biggest one. They didn't tell Social Security they were working. And a lot of times people think Social Security knows. Like, you know, let's say, you know, you get a job and you call up Social Security, the 800 number, and say, hey, I got a job working at Lowe's. I'm going to work 20 hours a week, $9 an hour. I start next week. And that person on the call says, okay, thank you, we'll put it in your record. That beneficiary thinks everything's cool. But what you have to do is every month you have to update Social Security and tell them how much you're making that month. Even though they're working at Lowe's and Social Security taxes are being taken out, all that fun stuff, it doesn't go through the system quick enough. So you could have someone working for a few months, doesn't report, and then eventually the IRS system clicks in with Social Security's, and that person gets a letter saying, hey, we overpaid you by X amount of dollars. We want our money back. And this freaks people out, which I can understand. I don't want the IRS, you know, sending me a letter saying I owe them money. These overpayments I've seen range from a few $100s to $50,000, $60,000. I have a guy right now who owes about $50,000 back. Now there was a lot of issues, but for years and years and years, he didn't report. Then he started reporting. It was back and forth. And then he was non-compliant. And, you know, I look at this another way. As a taxpayer, that's money that's been paid out that shouldn't have. So, you know, you look at it from both sides. It's not a good situation. Now, if they do, you know, and I threw that, you know, horrible example out about $50,000, they'll put people on a payment plan. So they will, and they'll work with you and say, okay, you can pay $50 back a month. But imagine, how long is it going to take that person to pay that back, if they ever do?
50,000 months.
It's going to take a little bit of time. So, so SSI, just to give you some history in case you want to talk to your friends about this kind of stuff, Nixon brought this in the 70s. The big thing with SSI, low income, low resource program. This is a poverty program. This is for a person, or if they're under the age of 18, you're looking at a family that doesn't have a lot coming in at all, or a lot saved. I had a statistic here years ago, but they don't publish it anymore, but it was something like, if you have a person that's getting SSI and they're under the age of 18, 66%, that's the sole income for that family. It's a very high amount. They don't publish that anymore, but it's a huge amount. Like I said, means tested, limited assets. So if you're on SSI, you can only have $2,000 in assets. So an asset is money that's saved. Any kind of savings account, CD, stocks, bonds, things like that. That $2,000 amount, that was put in the 70s, still the same number today. So, you know, we're all told in life to save money for a rainy day, wonder if, you know, the hot water heater goes, the car breaks down. $2,000 is not a lot of money. Federal benefit amount we already talked about. State of Pennsylvania adds in another $22.10 as a supplement. These amounts have to be adjusted monthly based on the situation, like work, living situation. SSI really wants to know everything about you. Who you live with, who pays the bills, how much money you got in the bank, da-da-da. Any of those things change, this SSI is going to change. So it's a very fluid system. And Social Security doesn't keep up with it as much as they should. That's why people need to be proactive. Like, you know, you got a job 6 months ago and you've been sending your pay stubs here to Greensburg, but you're still getting the same SSI check each month. You need to be working with someone to say, hey, why am I still getting this amount? They're going to catch it eventually, but you want to try to catch it sooner rather than later. This is a big one here. What Joni talked about was talking to some students in schools. You know, I got my SSI, I'm finally approved, I'm set. No need to worry about me. At age 18, if they were getting benefits before the age of 18, anyone on SSI is going to do an age 18 redetermination. So really what Social Security is doing is they're saying, okay, yes, you were eligible for SSI when, you know, starting at age 12 because of an autism diagnosis, let's say. So what they based that eligibility on was how did that autism diagnosis affect that kid in the school, okay? Now at age 18, let's say that same kid is going to remain in school till they're 21. They're going to hold the diploma and they're going to say till 21. Social Security doesn't care. They still turn to age 18, so Social Security is going to do a redetermination. And they're going to look at that point to see how does that autism diagnosis affect that person in the workplace. So in Social Security's world, under the age of 18, you're a student, 18 and over, you're a working adult. How does that affect you in the workforce? So I have seen some students get bumped off of SSI. Parents were outraged. I mean, there's some quirky situations all around, but that's really what they're doing. It doesn't matter that the kid's still in high school, going to graduate when they're 21, do whatever, but Social Security is still going to do this age 18 redetermination. Yes?
Is there a certain diagnosis? I mean, I've seen a lot of kids with ADD or ADHD that are getting bumped off, but is there like another diagnosis that seems to be prevalent that kids are getting the boot?
I've seen a lot with autism, higher functioning autism, like the Asperger's, the ADHD, some learning disabilities, some mental health. It depends on the severity, and the key is, like, I know I'm not singling out, but ADHD, you know, you can't sit in school and take the test, but maybe you could work at, you know, FedEx going here and there and everywhere, and that ADHD pays off for you a little bit because you're busy. So really, it's looking at how does it affect you in the school setting, how does it affect you in the workplace. But yeah, it's I've seen anymore, I think it's the ADHD and autism are more.
So they do the redeterminations at 18.
Mhm.
Are there reasons to continue the SSI, like, as long as they are in high school and until they're 21?
Yeah, they're gonna do the age 18 redetermination for Social Security, but what you're gonna have to tell them is, hey, he's still in school, he's receiving supports from OVR, some sort of technical school, let's continue it, let's buy him some time until he graduates, and then they'll do another redetermination. And even if you get through, let's say someone who has a severe, I don't know, like cerebral palsy or something along those lines. I mean, they're still going to do the age 18 redetermination. And if that person stays on Social Security benefits for the next 10, 15 years, periodically they're going to do medical reviews to check to see has anything changed. And I get those very frustrated calls from parents that saying, you know, I'm just going to take my daughter down to Social Security because her Down syndrome is still here. And that's not, they're just checking to see where is that person at. Because sometimes disabilities do improve. And these letters that they're sending out are form letters. They're mass mailed out to people. I mean, if it's your turn for an age 18 redetermination, you get the same form letter whether you have autism or you're blind. You know, so they're really just processing this. But what I also tell parents to do too is, if something has changed, like maybe the kid got on for autism, but now there's some other medical issues going on, then you need to update that record. So this can be helpful because you want to make sure Social Security knows exactly what's going on. But it causes a lot of issues, and a lot of times parents think, kid's still in school, I don't need to worry about this. If they don't follow through with this and answer the questions correctly, then the parents become non-compliant, and they bump you off right away. Yeah.
I've had teaching professionals say, and I frequently advocate for kids to stay after their graduation dates.
Mm-hmm.
I've had other people come to me and say, oh, they're just trying to do that so they can continue to get SSI.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a true statement?
I mean, technically, if you're working with OVR, working with through the Ticket to Work, or still in school, yeah, you can stay on. But you're not going to. It's not going to buy you endless amounts of time, you know. But I mean, there's always ways around the system, unfortunately. But what I can say is if age 18, you stated that you were in one of those programs, chances are, as soon as you graduate 21, 22, they're gonna do another re-exam. Yeah.
Joy, I have a question.
Oh, yeah?
When they're looking to do that medical redetermination, whose responsibility is it to get, does the person have to give the medical information, or is a release completed for Social Security to reach out to get that information?
It's both. It's actually a form that they send for the medical review, so the parents, the beneficiary can list what's going on with them, and then there is a release that the person signs, and then Social Security does reach out to the professionals.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do put a lot of the onus on the beneficiary, so you have to list, hey, who's helping you? Who are you seeking treatment with? Is it OVR? Is it, career and technical? Who is it? So you have to give them that information so they know who to reach out to. Yeah. Student earned income exclusion. This is intended to be a very helpful way for kids to try jobs and not have their SSI affected. Basically, it's saying you can make up so much money a month per year and you keep your full SSI benefit. Unfortunately, here in Westmoreland County, our local Social Security office examines this regulation in a very, very concrete way. So for a lot of the programs that are, how would you characterize?
Work training programs.
Work training programs, there you go. Work training programs. Social Security in Greensburg does not accept this. So in other counties, other Social Security offices, we have no problem getting this through. So, but if you had a kid in school who, let's say, went to work at, I don't know, Chick-fil-A, and they're working 10 hours a week while they're in school, this would pass at Social Security in Greensburg. But some of these work training programs, work study programs, they don't buy it because
our Weeble kids would have to be careful with that, that are going through the OVR PETS programs. In the past, a work discovery program kind of fell into this, and that's why Joy and I have worked very often with this when our students were getting a training stipend. Luckily, over the last couple of years, we have gone away with that, so they're not getting the training stipends anymore, so that's not been affecting our students. But we had a battle for this for many years, trying to figure out why they were not being included in this, because I tried fighting and lost the battle.
Yeah, it's a very specific way they're reading the regulation, and you have to be a student, and basically they were saying those kids didn't qualify as a student because they were not in regular education for so many hours a week. It was ridiculous. But so the WBLEs, the PETS, this comes up a little bit. But if it's just, a regular job out in the community, maybe with a job coach, but aside from all this other stuff, this works out pretty well. So basically you have a kid that, wants to go to work, mom and dad or mom is worried about what's gonna happen to the SSI. With a student earned income exclusion, that kid can make up to $1,820 a month and the family still keeps the full SSI. So that's a huge amount of money, and I know when I was in high school, you didn't make anywhere near that kind of money because there's just so many hours in a day you can work. This is nice. It does have, unfortunately, here in this county, issues within local Social Security. And maybe when someone retires or a group of people retire, we can revisit it. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah.
So you're familiar with our waiver programs, the 90 hours in the
Yep.
school year. Shouldn't be a problem. Correct?
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
But parents should still report that.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes.
They definitely need to report.
Yeah.
The other thing is like what Joy has there in the last line, needing to request. Like Social Security is not going to say, oh, you recognize the age and say, oh, are you still a student? Let me get you this student earned income. No. The parents need to be aware of that, so that's one of the things that we always push, and I have a little flyer on it, so when our students are, registering for a Weeble, it might be something to kind of put in that intake process saying, hey, while you're going to go talk to Social Security and you're going to report your earnings, make sure you request the student earned income exclusion as well.
Yeah, because it's going to track through, because those young adults are going to get a 1099. So eventually it's going to cross with the systems, and then Social Security is going to say, hey, we saw that John worked and made $500 last year. Why didn't you tell us? So it's great to get a letter from the school. It can be very generic that says, John Smith was enrolled for 2018-2019 school year. On the school letterhead, when parents report any earnings, then submit that into Social Security. Yeah, I've tried to battle this student earned income exclusion for years, and it's just, you hit a brick wall here. But what kills me is in neighboring counties, they do it with no problem. I'm like, can't we get you to come up here? I'll just move people around in Social Security as I see fit. So that's while they're a student. But after they get out of school, you know, whether it's age 18 or 22, everyone needs to realize that SSI needs to be adjusted based on how much you're earning. Like I said earlier, it's a needs-based program. So common sense tells you when you have more money coming in, you're not in need of as much from SSI. So I'm not going to stand here and do calculations because who wants to see that? But this is a graph that I use for a lot of people to just kind of explain, like, okay, in column 1, you're getting $750. Then now in column 2, you go out and work and make $600. So to make $600, that's like 20 hours a week minimum wage. You're still going to get an SSI check of $493. So it tiers up to show, like, you know, you're way over here in column 5, you're making $1,500, you're still getting $17 in SSI. So it shows people that, yeah, you can make more money, but the biggest thing to get across to beneficiaries and to parents is to say, well, I need $750, I'm only getting $493, I can't pay all my bills. So it's a different way of budgeting, and I hate to say it, you know, if you're a single mom, you know, the son is on SSI, he goes to work at Chick-fil-A, he's doing a good job, and, you know, but mom is struggling, he might have to take some of his money from his paycheck and give to mom for the bills. That's a tough sell sometimes. You know, but you got to look at things, and I think it goes even deeper than that to kind of, for that person to understand a little bit more about family finances, things like that, but that's sometimes what has to happen in order for this to work. But SSI is needs-based, and I keep coming back to the point, I mean, who would want to just stay at a point of just earning the bare basics in life? You know, $750 this year per month, next year, you know, I get $771. I mean, if you sit there and look at your own finances, how far would that get you?
Quick question. The work numbers that you have up there, obviously it's just a guideline, but is that pre-tax or post-tax?
That is gross, before taxes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything Social Security does is before taxes. Also with the welfare department too, pre-tax. Yeah. So one of the things that we try to encourage people to do is apply for an earned income tax credit. Because they would get a refund. Some of the people that I work with, it's not so much the younger kids, but you know, a little bit older, you know, when you start to explain to them that you would get a tax refund, you know, early following year, you know, their eyes kind of get big and stuff, and they're like, well, that's pretty cool. And I'm like, well, I always have mine spent even before I get it deposited. Most people look forward to those, but it's a different way of thinking. And I mean, unfortunately, you know, I've had some people, I talked to them about SSI, they're a little bit older, maybe, you know, 40s or 50s, and they're saying, you know what, I don't want to deal with all this. I figured out how to do this on $750 a month, leave me alone, lady. And that's their choice. But I think really what we need to do is look at the younger individuals, because they, you know, they're doing so many great things with transition, and I mean, stuff's more expensive now, and kids want more things. You know, so this is what it is. I mean, I hate to be a downer about this, but you know, the other thing about those overpayments, you know, like that difference there of what, a couple $100, if that adds up for like 6 or 7 months, you owe a nice amount of money back to Social Security if you're not reporting. Just real quick, I don't know if you've heard about ABLE. Big thing in Pennsylvania, PA ABLE, way to save money, all this fun stuff, da, 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 da. Go on their website. They have nice webinars and stuff. The reason I put this on here is to promote this and to also say, this does not change Social Security's rules. So even though there is an ABLE account that you can have, you have to set it up correctly because SSI's asset limit is still $2,000. When this first came out, there was a lot of confusion where people said, oh, SSI increased their asset limit. No, they didn't. You can put money into an ABLE account and it won't be considered an asset, but you have to do this correctly. I talked to one mom a couple weeks ago, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna set my Able account up for my kid. And she's like, I'm just gonna go to whatever bank and have them set it up. I said, no, you can't do that. You gotta go through the Commonwealth's set aside bank for this. So there's only one bank where you can set up these accounts, and you have to set up the account on the PA Able website. So it's very, very, processed as to what you need to do. You just can't say, oh, I'm gonna save extra money. But this is a nice program. They can save up to $14,000 a year. Not bad. There's, a lot of nuances to it. If grandma leaves you money, it has to be put in a certain way, but it's a nice program. So what do? I do what's called work incentive counseling. So what we always try to do with individuals is get something called a BPQI, and that stands for Benefits Planning Query. That document tells me exactly what the person's getting on Social Security benefits. There is some confusion with what people are getting. Kids don't get SSI, they get SSDI. There's not a lot, but there are some. Real brief on that, SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. So if you worked long enough and paid into the system, you're eligible for SSDI. Like I've paid enough in by now, so if something would happen to me and I qualified for Social Security Disability Insurance, I'd get X amount of money per month. Since I'm getting Social Security Disability, if I had any minor children, they would get a portion of mine. So my 12-year-old would get X amount of dollars, whether or not he has a disability. But then, when he turns 18, he could then qualify as a disabled child if he had a disability. So there's little caveats here, or if he had a parent that's not disabled, but it's deceased. It's kind of like the old survivor's benefits. So there's a few people out there that get that, and those rules are very, very different than SSI. So that's like what I was saying, we never answer that question over the phone, like how much can I make before I lose my benefits? Because a lot of times people don't know what benefits they're on, or they think one or the other. I have some people say, well, I get SSA benefits. There is no such thing. That's the administration that governs SSI and SSDI. Which one are you getting? This BPQI tells me that. So what I encourage people to do is before we set up a counseling session to get that, or I get that for them, so we know exactly what's going on. So we just are not guessing. I go through their work history, what they want to do, like you got income exclusions, what work incentives, talk to the parents on how to report the earnings. So these are all key things that they have to know to do. I would prefer that we get a hold of these kids before the job starts. Because, like it was Friday I got a call. She wasn't a young adult. She was, I don't know, if she's in her 30s maybe. She called me on Friday afternoon. She started her job on Monday. And I'm like, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. I tried to counsel her as much as I could, but we still need a lot of pieces in here. And I really do think there's so many questions about this. You got to get to families in the beginning so that they can progress through, because you don't want them to say, oh yeah, hey, we got them this job at Chick-fil-A, but oh no, I have to talk to someone because I don't know what's going to go on with my benefits. And it takes them a few days to get a hold of me, and then the job falls through because you gotta, it's just a bad way to approach things. Who we can work with, anyone age 14 and up. So if you have any students that are 14, I can work with them as long as they're already on benefits. So I can't help them apply for benefits or, fill out this form about a medical review. They have to already be on benefits and have questions about working. Or like I had a lady call me, she's single mom, she's getting married. What does the new husband's income have to do with the kid's SSI? I don't know. I know in the back of my mind it's going to be affected, but I just refer people to the local Social Security. So it's all work-related information. We have a contract with Social Security. We've been doing this for about 17 years now. It's basically to get information out to people. That doesn't mean that, whenever you meet with me, you've got to go to work full-time or part-time the next day. It's for information to try to hopefully promote employment, but it's not saying you're signing up for anything. when I first started doing this years ago, some people didn't want to see me coming because they thought, oh, this lady's gonna take away my benefits and make me go to work. That really was never Social Security's intention. There are so much misinformation out there, and let's face it, I mean, calling the local Social Security office, going there, not always the most pleasant of circumstances. No one wants to try to do it or wait on hold for X amount of time. So they wanted to have benefits counselors who are just geared towards the work incentives. So that's how they started all this. So this is how to get involved with us. This is our brochure. A few years ago, Social Security changed how they wanted people referred to us, and they wanted it to be through a national helpline. Now, I will say this is not run by Social Security itself. They commissioned it out. So you're not going to wait on hold for hours. It's not the process that you're thinking of. But what this does is, it kind of holds us more accountable, which I like. Basically, if you have someone, let's say you got someone down at, a school and they're thinking about getting a job here for Christmas. They want to get some extra money for spending. You have that family call this phone number. And if they're a transition age student, which is 14 to 21, they're an automatic referral to us. Now, the helpline will gather some basic information. They can pull up a little bit of stuff on the person. And then they do this little thing they say. They'll say, would you like to be referred to a local WIPA? That's what we're called. And then if the beneficiary or mom or dad says yes, that referral comes directly to me. And then it comes via email, this whole secure site. I got to put 2 passwords in to get to each email. It gets a little frustrating when yesterday I pulled down 11 emails, so I was like going through there, 2 passwords each time. I was like, then once that gets to me, I have 2 days to accept it. And then from that point, either myself or my staff have 5 business days to reach out to that person. So it's designed to have the continuity come quickly for that person. One of the key things that we get from the helpline in that referral is what the current situation is. Like, is the person starting work, or they already working, or are they just thinking about work? So then we can take those 11 that we got yesterday and prioritize those. So the ones that are working or have a job offer pending, they get the first calls, but everyone has to be contacted within 5 days. And this was designed because Social Security, for a few years, has not given us any more funding. Shocking. No one gets funding anymore. But what was happening is we were getting a lot of calls from people that were just kind of thinking about work. Maybe they're in their 40s or 50s thinking about it, don't have a real plan. And sometimes those calls can take a little bit of time. If you do 4 or 5 of those in a day, your whole day is gone. So with the helpline, for those general calls, they're handling it. But for the priority groups, they're getting referred to us. So the priority group is transition age, anyone who's working, has started their own business, or has had a job interview in the past 30 days. So those are the priority groups, because those are the people like really pushing forward to get a job. So on this page here, you also see there's 3 providers here in Western Pennsylvania for WIPA, AHEDD, Goodwill, Keystone, and DRP. So we cover all the red counties. So we have staff strategically placed to reach out to people. One of the things we've done the past few years, I mean, I live here locally in North Huntington, so I'll still meet with people in this area. But for people up like in Elk County, I mean, there's 4 people up there plus 10,000 hunters, right? No, there's not too much going on in Elk County or Potter County. So what we'll do, and this seems to work out well for families, is we'll do some remote counseling. So we'll do via conference call, if they feel comfortable, Skype on their computer, FaceTime. A lot of people aren't into that, but I mean conference calls, and we can do them in the evenings too. So for parents that are working or got other kids in the house, I mean, it seems to work out better for them to do it remotely. So that's something we're offering too, and that also can get us to people quicker. Instead of trying to drive how many hours it is Timbuktu up there. But yeah, that's basically Social Security in 30 minutes, which is a very, very general discussion. So, any questions?
Joy, can you touch base too on the referral and the release form that you shared recently? Because I've kind of been pushing that out.
Yeah, what that release form is going to get me to that BPQY. So if you have those out at schools, the referral form and that release, if parents could fill that out first, that would be helpful so that we could speed up the process. If they don't sign those releases and I have to get to BPQY, I don't have access to them. So I have to send the release out, wait for it to come back, then I got to send it to Greensburg or New Ken or Bell Vernon and wait for it to come back. So by that step being taken is helpful. Yeah.
So just gonna piggyback off that. So the referral we can make as educators, and we're sitting down with students. Again, I know Joy had mentioned earlier that they can't come out to IEP meetings. However, when we're sitting in those IEP meetings, we can talk about AHEDD, we can share the pamphlet, and we can say, okay, well, this is something, a service you're interested in. I have a referral form here that you can fill out, and here's a release. Bada bing, bada boom, and we're moving on.
Yeah.
You know, so again, make sure you have those. I've passed them out. If you need it again, I can email out to you, but be utilizing those resources so we can kind of get the students equipped with the resources that they can give.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out to me, like if you did that and sent it out to me and you know, you're wondering what's going on, communicate, that's not a problem. I have had some situations like that where the parents took them back home and told school that they sent them to me, but I never got them. You know, so schools call me. It was a case down in Allegheny County, McKeesport. The kid apparently needs to take some sort of class or do something, work study to graduate. And mom's saying to them, oh, I sent it all back to her. I don't have it. And so we've been going back and forth. So that way, I mean, there's only so much you can do sometimes, but please communicate or see where the process is. And if it's an urgent, like when you fill out the referral, the kid's just thinking about work, but then a week later, they got a job, let me know that. I mean, they move up in the priority list. Definitely.
Any other questions for Joy?
Are we done early too?
No, right on time?
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
I thought I started early.
We did. So I have a couple other notes, just really quick. Again, just to reiterate, we have been recording all of our presenters with the exception of Fry's. So I will be posting all the recordings on the council website. And again, if you don't know where to find that, we gave you the pamphlets that are back there, has the website noted on here. So you can get to that there. Also, our next council meeting is on February 12th, so please feel free. It's an open meeting. Please share with parents, share with other teachers, students, whatever. We're looking for anybody that can kind of help us out in our council meetings. We appreciate that. As part of the council this year, we every year try to have a focus area. So this year we're focusing on parent engagement, trying to see what can we do to try to get parents more involved in meetings, in resources like this. I mean, how many parents in here right now are parents? Okay, thank you for coming. We have one. Okay, so I really would love to please tell all your other parents that they need to come to stuff like this. Did you find it beneficial?
Yes.
Not to put you on the spot, but okay. So I really would like to fill the seats more with some of our parents at these events that we have that are going on. They are beneficial. They are informative to get out. So as part of that, the council put together 2 surveys. One is for our teachers to be utilizing at IEP meetings or students that we're working with that are currently in transition process. Asking questions along the lines of, you know, what are some barriers that you might have to being engaged in some of the meetings? What are some things that might help you if you would like to meet someplace else besides a school? You know, stuff like that. So we're trying to gain some data as far as what can we do to help parents be more engaged in the process. So what we're going to do as a council at the end of this school year, we're going to close off those surveys and we're going to review that data and say, okay, what kind of resources based off of the feedback we received can we put together to help engage students more in the process? In addition, like I said, there was 2 surveys. The other survey are for our lovely SCs, our OBR counselors, any other service providers that are working with students that are post-transition process. We also have a survey for them to find out, okay, you went through the transition process already. What
kind of things would you say were a good thing? What was a benefit from it? What were some things that you thought were negative? What are some things that you wish parents would have known about, maybe you would have known about, that we can share with other parents? So we have the other survey going out. Again, we'll be collecting that data throughout the entire school year. I will make sure those are posted on our website, so you have access to those. But if you want a direct link as well, I can email those out to you in addition to that. I think that was all I had noted. Any questions for me? No? Okay, well then, thank you again for coming. I appreciate you guys all taking the time to come out. Again, make sure you grab some of the resources on the back table, and hopefully we'll see you in February. If not, hopefully we'll see you in April for our resource fair.